Into me a baby share President Mahama the speech now combine the way you were. It looks as if as a Bupia with different opinion about the matter. But before I send the video, you share some video be near share some 2 or 2, 3 things me and send your call video now so. It's the first video.
UN General Assembly meeting no more to one nyina President Mahama kasa wie no one who said yen body koye one more ho nyina hu say nyansani na akasa no obi a onim de na akasa a true leader and wakasa no enya de ono bekwa oman bekwa to chalk na odi akwa to baby a chese we be free ho time we be because do baby na Russia for empire because of Adiana na Kufa do kwaye wo UN General Assembly meeting ase ema omo ambassador ho akra said na wa ha brikan ni bufu ye mo keka na agyenkyere ne nyina ye wotenasi wo krom ha
enti mami asema wo kan ema yehu say ana say according to ano opese ye ti ase say Mahama no appearance na okomeki o UN this UN General meeting how mo host in New York. Asama papa ne kan ni nyina off paso just say who fault bia wo bia e pepe bia da ne kwaso. Okay, I think say this is the reason why the person nyina yenhwe video so that we can all decide for ourselves, because me share a video no, there are some keynotes and answer nyema bia me pointing ya me expect this amount for and super point this and man out. And also, if say I'm amount for truly video ya actually think or point this and money out and Quebec myself, na command discuss. Won't mean 50 preoccupy and case papa na some of time na than because all bad con one be and discusses and so they say. Enti nema na o kan no ntimi nkasa wotimi nyina so na anaso wogimi tu enti sisi ya baba hu say nipa dodo no na say the popular media na say a popular side of the media agrees with what the president said at the UN meeting. My share this second video.
Ansem bonsia no bonsem.
I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
Watching Mumina. Ababu about na go say settlers mu hu no baba yi panasam dodo ewo
na kana 40 ntade bia ya e wo say dey joke kakra ta ho ai yeti unye serious 100%. Okay, enti ya share first video no you say manu we say na minim but me say all can something about Donald Trump say Mahama ko no dey Donald Trump again koko diago. Inti ansana even move to president speech. The person yen share Donald Trump on speech no combine some overview, some short video. Na yen enema o kai. Na yen hwe say sene omusi hu so ni pa bonifo. Eye saa na ananse sene amanfo el kansen enema o kai enya ampa. Eye saa. So
was in a period of just 7 months, I have ended 7 unendable wars. They said they were unendable. You're never going to get them solved. Some were going.
Sometimes there was some clearly say a partner said that the president of the United States of America on a typical general meeting all the leaders of the world attend. You could know money. No good information in power nina. Eko kache o say wa end the war. Na enyam but like how is that possible? So ɔbɛkɔ akɔgyina wɔn anim akɔka saa asɛm no, but na ɛnyɛ ampa. Nti claim no, I don't know what it means, like it's funny, but with the moment me personally, I know that he has ended some wars. So that is one point. That is one point that Donald Trump could make you UN. So Obama wars are some akoso for some years. Obama within 8-9 months, but him about the stoppers our wars. And number one point, no. It is in we were in Pabonefua and Kobe Sadi. Let's continue.
For 31 years, two of them, 31, think of it, 31 years. One was 36 years.
Was about
One was
for 31
years.
36 years.
I ended 7 wars. And in all cases, they were raging with countless thousands of people being killed. I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal. All I got.
Until the second point I was making and say, "Obe take you over." Any amount why you na UN for and phone and friend and country and say, "Omo dasi and I say omo bwaneta, ono kwane ye bibia," but omo painting is a bad guy.
Got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen, but she's in great shape.
Oban escalator or they ba stop here. As almost shut down, so be the cooking machine the day, but almost shut down my papa no one in the almost for staircase. Like for what? But let's continue.
We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. What is the purpose of the United Nations? The UN has such tremendous potential.
And another point I was making and say, beside UN from say, you are a collective, a union of all the leaders in the world. Who they have found some most part of the world. Almost so fast one say, what did you do? Like Daben and our water team so. At say it's UN for Ako ABB. Would they have found the last 15 years? And you may have seen that. Daben and what is it? It's just UN for COVID drew by and I say UN for that what Daben want to be. Over there is America, over there is Pfizer, over there is into UN for no one. Almost so fast. Let's continue.
I've always said it. It has such tremendous, tremendous potential, but it's not even coming close to living up to that potential. For the most part, at least for now, all they seem to do is write a really strongly worded letter and then never follow that letter up. It's empty words, and empty words don't solve war. Many years ago, a very successful real estate developer in New York.
Another point I was making is or first I will be UN for a more dynamo, like a very innovative. I think so for a cheaper price and for a higher quality. And a different contract, and a contract and it almost see. And also to see more dynamo basa momo. Maybe it's a more for escalator stop it. It was also another point I was making you move. Maybe so far upon the points I will make in the Yansa Wupa. It's new. Baby, I suggest to say when the Papa Nifo now say, I suggest to say we'll be denied being Tiago into the mere to us.
Known as Donald J. Trump, I bid on the renovation and rebuilding of this very United Nations complex. I remember it so well. I said at the time that I would do it for $500 million, rebuilding everything. It would be beautiful. I used to talk about, I'm going to give you marble floors. They're going to give you terrazzo. I'm going to give you the best of everything. You're going to have mahogany walls. They're going to give you plastic. But they decided to go in another direction, which was much more expensive at the time, and which actually produced a far inferior product. And I realized that they did not know what they were doing when it came to construction, and that their building concepts were so wrong and the product that they were proposing to build was so bad and so costly. It was going to cost them a fortune. And I said, and wait till you see the overruns. Well, I turned out to be right. They had massive cost overruns and spent between $2 and $4 billion on the building and did not even get the marble floors that I promised them. You walk on Terraza, do you notice?
Into do you now offer UN for 400 million? Oman too. And no different contractor. Omani ba almost no man boka bears between 2 billion to 4 billion. And no dear omo penasa. Let's continue.
As far as I'm concerned, frankly, looking at the building and getting stuck on the escalator, they still haven't finished the job. They still haven't finished. That was years ago. Millions of people came through that southern border. Just a year ago, millions and millions of people were pouring.
Another point also I'm making here is what's UN for? Omuna omo financing, like omuna omo sponsor illegal immigration. Intokosi will be kuma. Instead of saying a UN for, omuda buanuma fighting tokanoma solving tokan. Na wasisa refugees. You see UNA. No, they are more quite different countries. Don't more you. Let's continue.
And 25 million altogether over the 4 years of the incompetent Biden administration. And now we have it stopped, totally stopped. In fact, they're not even coming anymore because they know they can't get through. But what took place is totally unacceptable. The UN is supposed to stop invasions, not create them and not finance them. In the United States, we reject the idea that mass numbers of people from foreign lands can be permitted to travel halfway around the world, trample our borders, violate our sovereignty, cause unmitigated crime, and
I understand, say, most people are complaining about the mass deportation, but so what dream and certain we see from their perspective, making a decision can be difficult. Like, it's not that easy to say, Obekase, Papa no Papa force will deport you because the issue is not that simple. So they have their country, they have their own livelihood, they have their lives to think about. Their survival is important to them. Who will survive until a who feel country echo who? It's who can increase competition. Only no air compete for a day or no idea. You understand? And I'm only say, okay, fine. If you want to come inside there, you make sure say you do it legally. That means you have something to contribute or to offer to my country. It is a national country, air offer will be beer, then it's a fair trade. Like BBC or such. It means say amount for say, oh, do fine. Me country you say. I know how difficult it is, and I also know how difficult it is. So Kataska. Now, we are quite good plane ticket to the Aquabuji. Opportunity no being aquamania, I saw them by Bob. It's not any adequate. It is to finally get the opportunity to travel at all and then to be brought back like a year. I haven't experienced it, but I can only imagine. Let's continue.
Complete our social safety net. We have reasserted that America belongs to the American people, and I encourage all countries to take their own stand in defense of their citizens as well. You have to do that because I see it. I'm not mentioning names. I see it, and I can call every single one of them out. You're destroying your countries. They're being destroyed. Europe is in serious trouble. They've been invaded by a force of illegal aliens like nobody.
To on the illegal immigration issue that I know how addressing. Another thing is also my illegal immigration issue there. Essentially, important thing is almost something more than normal. Near LED to like Texas, so they call Mexico. Say quite an amount for immigrants and the first of the almost shut up on anti-fast on that. Dead bodies are one forest like Upia person surviving. I'm going to say it is the equivalent of Libya going to sana kwa you. On say no ye can ho asem saa any jai ye twa so ya policy. Into ono nso ni kurom, we see the same thing. People are dying. But in this case, on say yeah, the Libya for they didn't care. But he cared for the immigrants. Into only one person will save your life. Like, believe it or not. Because I'm not for a woman a drugs or modern trafficking back home any and qualify trafficking. Not like it. Just sometime I almost could pay or some place because in Qualabi pre you don't never be a show for like you be train your money at to become horse like become. And so no yes I do say for the country yeah. I don't know region China catch and say we become wonderful. Let's continue.
He's ever seen before. Illegal aliens are pouring into Europe. Nobody is ever, and nobody's doing anything to change it, to get them out. It's not sustainable. And because they choose to be politically correct, they're doing just absolutely nothing.
Political correctness just say, navigating politics, no. Nema upie energy. For example, Kianfan say, if NDC no yes a certain way to sign no me leftists in our perspective. Kianfan say when they decide say navigate politics energy asin street like heterosexuals homosexuals like gays and lesbians this animal maybe want some certain things money in general say complain the government have to navigate politics to make them happy. To say for example America obi betimi asori anopa ebi anipa also we homosexual like we gay obetimi asori anopa your obema also your ba on say gay for no obema no obema until one has to be the woman after also your ba also changing the gender until anonti so ko baby I join so and say washroom okay so you see empowered here like what is that into and yes some small washroom a big washroom I'm for to be where a man one or I'm for naked near the baby shed breezy and yard. Now we are Bema now in South I say it is a man for any June when I say this any power say in any Gia or no who saw a victim. So the government have to come in and make him happy. And to make him happy, not just say, or be legalized, say, so be your Bema, Nasa dear channel upon us or so your bar. That's what people use a bar restroom, yeah, loud. By Obi Betty reprove because of Saddam. It is due to political correctness. A young government to pursue more BMG. By political correctness, any idea do not trump the region. You understand? On any day, say, they be adding it down, fatu, or your Bema, and now your Bema, or now your Bema, and your child, baby, your Bema. There's no way so best I know back at Chinese or your bar, ye any GD, Debbie. Sahan nada no dear, Debbie. On one person, the entrance. When I just say, did you all my HS in the Papone for an and Yamaya Macarena?
Thing about it. I look at London where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor. And it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law. But you're in a different country. You can't do that. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. They cannot. This cannot be sustained. Another UN official stated in 1989 that within a decade, entire nations could be wiped off the map by global warming.
Now, another thing as I will come say about climate change, global warming, like the environmental impact. I think we say some topic here I can say about because it involves like business transactions are powerful people they involved. I think it all comes down to manufacturing and production. Manufacturing and production is so the a scaffolding. It's say we accuse we say of having much higher impact on climate change. That means say per se like a farmer so now we say it's slow the development and production rate so that on the unknown will be like some cake So it's a no person emphasize say, oh, you say environmental day, Nina and because there was a timer. Now I will be as there was a timer or show so by to see and say I will the woman not sure about it. A temperature, a climate, a change. There's a nya dibia, a debate of found with your discana, a divi chantra and idipisa. Let's go.
Warming, not happening. You know, it used to be global cooling. If you look back years ago in the 1920s and the 1930s, they said, global cooling will kill the world. We have to do something. Then they said global warming will kill the world. But then it started getting cooler. So now they could just call it climate change because that way they can't miss. It's climate change. Because if it goes higher or lower, whatever the hell happens, there's climate change. It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling, all of these predictions made by the United Nations.
It's like a booster true or false question. Now I say true, I say false.
Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong. They were made by stupid people that have cost their countries fortunes and given those same countries no chance for success. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail.
Okay. And CCA, and then we have a point so far. Nina so address issues are causes CCA. Obusa UN for some for saying all catch say all stop your wars near the Oman Boano about global warming scam, no, which will affect productivity. So on Sunday, we say, any man and person also power to only speech, you know, the totality, I think it's a 1 hour, something like that. Given the like to say, baby, I'm feeling near Ghanaian, I do not really have any obligation to do a reaction video on Donald Trump's video. But if you are a Trump's fan, and I said, me just also be a supporter for by also any do on oh yeah admirable, so maybe episodes in your film change, so people tend to seem like Omo and the fan, they learn from him. So if you are like fanatic of Trump, not say we interested in your speech and reaction video, I will bet me I can do that. So let's move on to President Mahama's speech, the speech itself, the speech under question. Yeah, the tall man.
Thank you.
That's okay, quiet and listen.
Madam President,
okay.
Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. At this 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly, I'd like to speak about Africa's role in the future of this organization. However, it's impossible to do that without first considering the collective role that Africa played in its founding, which was small and relatively insignificant. Of the 51 member states involved in the founding of the United Nations in 1945, only 4 were African. Egypt.
Like, first thing I'll make it clear is that how are Africans we can contribute to the movement of the future. But per se, or sounds also addressing the fact say Africans are not really involved in the protocols and I say in the workings of the UN, because out of the 51 African countries are or more part of the UN union, about 4 per any African countries. That makes sense. It makes sense. But maybe shut down knew how our involvement with the UN should contribute to the general movement and also the progress of the future of the world. Like, by you, let's listen to Mr. President. I think he's making a lot of sense.
Ethiopia, Liberia, and South Africa. It is important to point out that the United Nations came into being in the aftermath of World War II because of the inability of its predecessor, the League of Nations, to avert a large-scale global conflict, which had been its guiding purpose when it was founded in 1920 at the end of the First World War.
Then it looks as if the UN may fail one or more years around. Because almost establishing as the League of Nations, because some person would prevent another incident like World War I, and a World War II starting. Hey, almost failure of first mission. I don't know one stop union almost afterwards. Let's continue.
Out of the 42 founding member states of the League of Nations, only 3 were African: Liberia, the Union of South Africa, and Ethiopia.
And here, before World War II, no, that time the League of Nations, UN, the League of Nations, that time there 41 countries, now 3 African countries. That means say, almost change your mood UN, almost the African country back up and account man by 4. 41, 10 countries, only 1 Africa. 89 other countries, 1 African country, Penababa count.
Egypt was to join later in 1937. Africa's overall participation in the organizations found.
That means after Egypt Babe joining after Second World War, Mabe UN, African country be a join EP. Like me person you baby a papa or dear or drive yako. Like I'm thinking all your casa anybody.
Was minimal and relatively unimportant. That's because before all the other talks and meetings, representatives from a group of 14 nations gathered in Berlin for a series of discussions that began in 1884 and which led to the partitioning and formal colonization of the African continent, which is also called the Scramble for Africa. It has famously been written that past is prologue. Well, in the past, the majority of the 54 nations that now comprise Africa were never offered a seat at the table where plans.
I said 9 countries, 13.
For a new world order were being drawn. But, Madam President, as fate would have it, the tables are turning, and Africa's role in the authorship of whatever is yet to come.
From anyone or kind of factor or we could say they don't really value Africa, our presence in their operations, because it's almost as if they want less of us. And I say, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, I might have very negative consequences. But it will be also the past is full of India.
For this world is going to be huge and it will be consequential. According to this organization's own projections, by the year 2050, more than 25% of the world's population is expected to come from the African continent. Additionally, by
because of a Dramani India, 25% population contribution there is continuing. That means any part of the world be free Africa and like Africa for a bed also. In
2050, 1/3 of all young people aged between 15 to 24 will be residing on the African continent. So you see, the future of this world is African. Allow me to say this once again a little louder for those of you in the back. The future is African.
Because of say your dominating population, the future is African. Okay,
already today, Africa is a catalyst for human potential and development, as well as for economic reform and ecological stability.
Like me per se, send Donald Trump original or say, ya stopping me, ya say, ya di we have her, ya say, sabi you son me person papa in count. But so far I was starting in I say, like to say, diplomacy in a also. Sunday my work economic then we're here for a quite offense or jay. It was.
Africa is a catalyst for systemic change.
HSA.
If this reality, which is fact-based and straightforward, seems provocative or unsettling, perhaps it's because you are viewing it through the lens of centuries of filters, colonialism and imperialism.
So it was say, if you disagree, that means you are a racist. Like you understand, someone all can what can give you what my evidence. No, it doesn't. It's not based on anything. Like what show says nothing shows. But if you do not agree with him, then you are a colonial. Sort of say you are a racist. You are a hater. Before someone say before someone I am a black person. As I'm working, I am just the person I'm trying to understand. My receive year course. It is okay generally now can be. Nothing be who and say any ampa. Me to me can say I agree with you. And so if I disagree with you, that doesn't automatically make me say me tiny. It is just I am just trying to understand. That's all. So continue.
And the resulting implicit bias. Maybe you are unaware of the resilience of African nations or their remarkable ability to make a strong comeback just when you think it's safe to count them out.
And if say I'm say Sanima will say achieve, then why are you trying to insinuate say we can make a comeback? That means you a comeback. But when you so say and then nothing shows. And if I disagree to you, you say I hate you. Okay, let's continue.
That is what is happening right now in my own country, Ghana.
Okay.
Our constitution limits leaders to 2 4-year terms. In January, I was sworn in for a second term, which, let me point out, was non-consecutive with my first term. Our currency, the Ghana cedi, was rapidly depreciating, faced with rising inflation, a huge debt burden, and low morale amongst our citizens. My new administration settled down quickly and embarked on an ambitious program of comprehensive transformation. Designed to restructure Ghana's economic foundation and enhance our competitive standing globally.
Okay.
We refer to this process of recalibration as our reset agenda.
Okay.
In just 8 months, we have achieved significant reduction in inflation from 23.8% in December to...
In 8 months, now will be what ended was. Why see? So when you're in 8 months, why you? But you say, or no need will be again at the apple.
2024 to 11.5% in August 2025. Restoring price stability for our citizens. Additionally, our currency, the Ghana cedi, has appreciated considerably against other currencies, with Bloomberg reporting it as the best performing currency in the world at one point.
Like at the end of the year, what do you do? At the end of the year, must have an PC. Like, my person will be in country. If it's unfortunate for me, I don't have a lot of viewers, but I can viewers are, I can make person will be church. Then see, since I am an amateur when it comes to Ghanaian politics.
Our improved sovereign credit rating reflects increasing investor confidence in our economy. And our 24-hour economy initiative promises to transform our economy. And there's a renewed willingness amongst our people to trust that their elected officials have Ghana's interests at heart and that we're progressing together.
I know it should be like a job requirement. You should have the Ghana's best interests. It should be.
Madam President, I believe that in honor of this milestone celebration, the United Nations should also embark on a process of serious recalibration and establish its own reset agenda. Since the organization's founding, the number of UN member nations has nearly quadrupled. And quite frankly, it is not the same world that it was back then when the UN was formed. I mentioned earlier that I began my second non-consecutive term as president this past January. My first term ended in January 2017. In that span of time, 8 years, the world has changed with such ferocity. My first days in office after my return felt as though I had just awakened from a Rip Van Winkle style sleep.
It was?
Now, no, that was only after 8 years. Imagine then what it will be like after 80 years since the founding of the United Nations. In 1945, the sun had not yet set on the largest empire in history.
1945.
The most common
after the Second World War. The Second World War started like 1939, ended 1944. Okay, so that would mean that the UN was formed after 44, so it was from 45. Okay.
Mode of international travel was by sea. The personal computer had not been invented, let alone made portable. And television, a new convenience, was still in its infancy, albeit in black and white color. Relations between the US and the Soviet Union were turning frosty, with Winston Churchill declaring that an iron curtain has descended across the European continent. Fast track 80 years on, in today's world, hundreds of thousands of commercial flights take off and land every day.
Like, Obama in a flashback 45 years, and you saw the Ghana and Africa BBC or more. Or fast forward quiet.
Have been digitized so that volumes of literature can exist on a small device, small enough to fit inside your pocket. We live in a world of cryptocurrency, artificial intelligence, social media, the internet and its dark hidden dungeon of the dark web, all of which carry a potential threat to global peace and security. Climate change is real, and we're fighting a losing battle.
Selma Walker, meaning, sir, or Barbie make a point to be say, Africa should be involved in the UN somehow because of this reason. By Waka history and Wabaka ongoing activities, say information has been packed into phone, blah blah blah, TV, anything. Over here, you know, we're moving called climate change. What and then what kind like into facts in one what kind like or what kind any air cost of let's continue.
Against the loss of Maldives and other island nations to the rising sea level, against the loss of Timbuktu to desertification and the Amazon forest to global warming and deforestation. Madam President, the UN...
Once Donald Trump by or said climate change is not real, I say who is a con job. On so by or say yampa. Mimi who say some kind of challenge be our challenge papa. Because Donald Trump didn't only first person who must speech. When the first person who didn't can kasai. Any speech we ever be after on it's me as you say Mahama or papa ne kan it could be to me sink or pa and I say be our ne papa ne opinion and I say in could me a redacted in the speech, but Osha would disagree with the papa. So in some sense, if you are any challenge, a difference in opinions. I don't know how they can work together under this, but I know Donald Trump. He's a very direct person. Like he will say, like he will question you about it. If he doesn't agree with you on certain matter, come. And so, like, if you're not a very diplomatic person, even though we're much open to people with different opinions, I just say we're nasty and I say we're truthful. On the other one, it doesn't really tolerate. But like, even if you have different opinions from him, still now you welcome you talk to you and stuff. But like to say, if you have that kind of friendship now, compared to me, be with the same opinion I have, won't have it. I think it's the same for all of us. So let's continue.
The founding charter is outdated when it comes to representation in this August assembly. The most powerful post-World War II nations are still being rewarded with an almost totalitarian guardianship over the rest of the world. And yet, the first sentence in Chapter 2, Article 1 of the UN Charter declares that the organization is based on the principle of sovereign equality of all its members. If this were true and was the case, a continent as large as Africa, with its numerous UN member states, would have at least one permanent seat on the Security Council.
So here is a man standing in front of him, claiming that he has everything that he needs to propel him forward, like potential to a potentially well-developed and a manufactured future for his country and continent, because he has all the materials and all the requirements. He wouldn't list the specific materials and requirements, but he claims that he has them. But here is this man standing in front of you, like in front of you. I don't want to say beg, but requesting you for your help for a position in your position. Like this person who claims to have everything wants to be part of who you are or what you are. Like, for what? Is it because this man standing in front of me doesn't have anything as he claims to have, or does this man lack the management that is required to manage the thing that he has? What is the problem here? Does this man have good thoughts? Is this man trying to invade me, like using Trojan horse tactics? Like, you understand? If you have everything that you claim that you have, if you have all these things, then why are we begging for a chair at the UN table? Like, that is my question. If you can do everything by ourselves, why are we asking for outside help? Investors, like, why are we doing? Like, you understand? This is a situation that is like, let's continue.
Furthermore, we believe that veto power should not be restricted to only 5 nations, nor should it be absolute. There must be a mechanism in this House for the General Assembly to challenge a veto. No single nation should be able to exercise an absolute veto to serve its own interests in a dispute. In 1995, during the 50th anniversary of the United Nations, Nelson Mandela stood in this very spot, and he said, the United Nations has to reassess its role, redefine its profile, and reshape its structures. It should truly reflect the diversity of our universe and ensure equity among the nations in the exercise of power within the system.
I understand what these people are trying to say, but I don't think you are the one who is supposed to go to them or request a chair at their table. I think they are supposed to come to you. They are supposed to like see your potential, and they are supposed to come to you for what you have, so that you can be part of them. I mean, they are the growing union, and you are the singular. So, if you want to be part of them, that means you have to build yourself. You have to make yourself look attractive. So, if Africa will truly have everything that we say that we do, that we have, I think it's up to us to figure out a way how to manage and how to harness these kind of resources that we have for ourselves. But have you seen that over the years, anytime we trust everything to these white people, they take advantage of us and then it draws us back instead. So I don't know why we are going to do the same thing. Or do we think of ourselves as evolved when it comes to managing white people? Like we have developed some kind of sixth sense or some kind of telepathy that we can sort of use to manipulate the white people overnight or what? Like, I don't understand. Because once we look for external investors or we look for help from the outside, then the same thing is going to happen again. Let's continue.
System of international relations in general and the Security Council in particular are close quotations. 30 years later, we African leaders are still making the same simple request for a permanent seat on the Security Council.
So you see, they are still making the same permanent request. Let's continue.
With the power of a veto.
So
today, Madam President, I stand here in this exact spot.
So like, if you are saying that there are colonialists out there and you believe that people have power and you don't, then it's true. There are colonialists out there for you. But if you think that you have the power, if you think that you have power too, if you think all of us have power, with responsibility comes power. If you believe ourselves to be truthful and responsible enough, I think we will start feeling that the power coursing through our veins. It all comes down to ourselves. Nobody is going to have. Let's continue.
And ask the world, if not now, then when?
Never.
We demand not only a reform of the Security Council, but also a reset of the global financial architecture, which is currently rigged against Africa.
Why is this man demanding things from people that he's not part of? If you're not part of these people, why are you demanding things from them? And they will give it to you. Why? Let's continue.
Africa must have a greater say in the world's multilateral financial institutions. And while I'm making requests, I'd like to call for the removal of the blockade on Cuba. As Dr. Kwame Nkrumah,
like he just said things that he think that Africa needs. You think that Africa needs a chair at the UN thing? You think Africa needs a reset of global economic infrastructure? You think Africa has to first set up an African economic infrastructure. There's no need for Africa to go and be part of something global. But Africa economic infrastructure can be part of the global economic infrastructure. You understand? Once we become a union, by unionizing ourselves, we make ourselves attractive. You understand? It is like royal marriages. Prince and princess, something has to happen. Like culture, to buy intelligence, this, that, and warfare. If young society says that, then we have to do something different. But let's listen to what he has to care about the Cuba blockade.
our nation's founder, famously said, "We seek to be friends with all and enemies to none." The Cuban people shed their blood on African soil in the fight against apartheid. And indeed, Cuba has been and continues to be a faithful friend of Africa. You see, the very fact that I can stand here and ask these things and say these things, and the fact that all nations can ostensibly gather here to address critical global issues, air our grievances, and express our concerns, that is what makes the survival of this organization so important. In every old city or village, you'll find...
So, because of say, you bet me baby, I go complaining to and the ma organization will say UN the survivor are important. And baby I go find a solution. Baby I go complain. You express your grievances. Into basically the UN is a town hall. Into President Mahama a plane free Ghana, America, New York, only to attend a town hall meeting in the name of UN. That meeting we say, or any other place, we don't have can travel Conco. And when New York, in the future, unfortunately, only host it was all corners are. And to one person say, that is the importance of the UN. And to one far playing free Ghana at the core, New York, I could attend this meeting, we see. People were all coming to send out protesters near that. Would I me say, we bet me a fan one to the points will be Kunidia, but we're president and be a bit me. So we'll be fan one and coordinating Bonia and coordinating Bonia for free. All because of say or Quack attend the town meeting to New York. You understand? This is not any Omejuman. That is not the job of the UN. UN send a one Saudi Kankai, or the League of Nations. Omejuman send combat preventing war. ɛna ɔmo faili ɛna ɔmo asɛse ɔmo na ɔmo sɛ baabi ɔno mo a ɔmo to kyema ɛno nti na ma second world war esi ɛna ɔmo sɛ gu na ɔmo sɛ ate ne foforɔ ɛna ɔmo to ne din enti sɛ ne nneɛma si yɛ a ɛma second world war si yɛ ɛno nti ɛna mo ɔmo start UN sɛ they will learn from their mistakes so that third world war won't start again enti for a time there na UN no ɔmo so ɔmfa so sɛ third world war man yɛbɛtumi aka sɛ they are responsible for that ɔmo so ɔmfa so paa nti they are in charge of keeping peace around the world. So they're not necessarily peace around the world. They are in charge of making sure the third world war ends. They are two different things. They can be equal, but they are two different things. And so maybe the reason why Papa will say, "Ako demand, every UN for." You understand? Meanwhile, one can start here. We say, Africa, we didn't contribute much to First World War and a Second World War. It is young contributing much to Sanko for this year, or might devote to say, on preventing world wars. And your quite need and fast one pain and umbenya free home. So, it is a nipam, so I'm far one kind of one year born you, who say we soon need fast one at the end. It is open so at the work one, and ye day, grab mouse to mouth fast to the point so no obey realizing. It's limiting the reason why. Like instead of say we put things into action, the Kasan diplomacy, you understand? Let's come down to our own level. My entrance, then let's discuss, let's talk. So, meaning who be idea in the far ever by yen answer. Yes, we'll be in man here. It require our starting was wow. And
the town square or a courtyard or a plaza that once served as a gathering space for the citizens of the community and their leaders. Meetings and celebrations were held there, as were trials and elections. And these were spaces that brought people together and held them together as a community. Sadly, time and technology have eroded these spaces. Madam President, in many ways, the United Nations is the proverbial town square of our modern global village. And it has never been more critical for us to protect this one space that brings and holds the world nations together as a community.
It is not our job, it is not the world's job to protect and hold the UN in place. It is the UN's job to hold and protect the world in place. Like enye nyankopon adwuma no so obon pa ya manipa nipa adwuma no so obon pa ya nyankopon. Let's continue.
The internet, social media platforms, and artificial intelligence offer us the illusion of connectivity, when in fact what they do is reinforce isolation by using algorithms that ensure that we do not receive new ideas and perspectives.
Me social media using it. Social media no onye nipa mi no te baby wo na adokwa kofa phone abotwe social media no start here use algorithm na wo build no wo use no we input no na build the algorithm. It's like aduane egu yam janna wo digu yam no na beche shit how be e be feel more enti wo mentimi nka chere say wo pese wo kodi am na baby men kasa send. Don't talk about social media. Talk about the users. Like find a way, like find another way to make your people interested, like raise our spirit. Like our spirits are down. Nobody really wants to talk about important things anymore. Everybody just wants to be like happy, fun. Sitting. Like forget about the social media and let's come down to our level and talk.
But rather more of the same content. We are served alternative facts and manipulated images, making it easy.
Right now, he's trying to blame the output for the output. But what you put in is what you get. What you put in is what comes out. So if you are putting in 1 will come out. Right now, you are blaming the output for the problem. The output too haven't done anything. Social media content omunya wo hwe. Se me upload picture ba ko to me Facebook profile. Me ko picture ba ko na na dawo. Me ntimi nka nche me say enti picture ba ko na dawo enti because of anything no me nya different picture. That be me a different picture, meeting different picture. Aqua. It is a young see different things and now you perceive circulating new ideas and a young users. And it was a social media, no, they won't actually. Maybe so far, and you might President Mahama can you say, I disagree, but I don't understand the reason why all the cancer and the we see. I don't understand the reason why into Obeko UN, Obefa playing finger and Apuni, attending meeting, global skills. Now, Obeke can you like name it, make us obi to be what you say about again. People agree, people understand, but me mean say in that, and your man mean say, and also once and making. So if you agree with me, maybe you bet me make an answer, and I say maybe you can comment, and then maybe we can discuss. Maybe you can help me to understand what the president is trying to say better, because I am a little bit confused here.
To disseminate disinformation and sow seeds of division amongst communities. Madam President, these are dangerous times. Our world is currently experiencing a rise in nationalism and economic instability. There's a general breakdown of multilateralism. Various acts of aggression have been committed against the sovereignty of others, and nations are attempting to circumvent the very safeguards that were put in place to prevent large-scale global conflict. These conditions are all too similar to the ones that led to the League of Nations' failure in fulfilling its mandate.
Like, anemia or one thing, like a fan who begged to say, if other countries are going to go, why? Like, why are you talking about it? Like, what could you now pop it to? The amount limited time, less than 25 minutes. Say, when I call addressing nation, like to say, what can be on? Something is going on now, something is about to go on. Fine, we'll buy it. Within 8 months, I'll buy it, and things have changed. During COVID time, and I said during COVID time, any co-founder times, these three things, when you compare, this is much better. You understand? And me per se, like to say, any man I confused about this, the rise of the city, any good, nenes animal, me expecting to say no one said na or count. So I am confused here. So let's continue.
The denial of visas to President Abbas and the Palestinian delegation sets a bad precedent and should be deeply worrying to all member nations of the United Nations. Ghana recognized the state of Palestine in 1988 and supported a two-state solution to the conflict since then. And I say, contrary to the claims of some, a two-state solution would not be a reward for Hamas. It would rather be a reprieve for the hundreds of thousands of innocent women and children and people.
What the free social media, no their Bakubaso, no their Bahamas, no their Baklami, like medium work a Kanyaman Sahan, like to say, so or Kanyama with Nimkeki.
Who are facing collective punishment and forced starvation for no reason other than the fact that they are Palestinian.
Maybe I should say, Israel for Omontokoi. I don't really know much about it, so I can't comment on it. It seems like a sensitive topic. It seems like both sides could be right. It seems like one side could be right and one side could be wrong. It seems like they could both be right. They could both be, like I don't really know much about it. It's very confusing. But I will have time and read a lot about it. But for now, I have no comment on it.
Nearly 2 years, and for the fear of reprisals, we here in this General Assembly have been playing hide and seek with language to find the right words to help us avoid or excuse what we all know is taking place in Gaza. But here's the thing, it doesn't matter what you call it. If it looks like a duck, it swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, well, then it must be a duck. The crimes in Gaza must stop. The crimes in Gaza must stop. Madam President, I also want to draw particular attention to the conflict in Sudan, which this body has described as the world's largest.
one may address Cuba for issue, one may address Palestine, Gaza, Hamas, one may address to see what do Sudan. Now Sudan for also bomb back country, now Palestine for bombs on back country, now Israel for also bomb back country. Why not my back count Uganda once? How would they be out to us?
This humanitarian crisis, 12 million people have had to flee their homes. And when we speak of migration, we refer to the 12 million new Sudanese refugees, whom we as a global community should.
See, I don't Trump and answer no kind about illegal immigration or ban. I'm also somebody I don't say immigration. Yampiness me okay. So, me the meaning say challenge or challenging is a day. I don't know. But I am to answer. Me the jive. I'm a friend. I turn a jive.
Be willing to assist in much the same way that many member nations readily assisted new refugees coming out of Ukraine. Let's dispense with the euphemisms and dog whistles and speak frankly. It is not a mystery that when leaders of Western nations complain of their migration problems, they are often referring to immigrants from the global south. But many of those immigrants are climate refugees. And interestingly, the global north emits 75% more greenhouse gases than the global south. However, the effects of climate change are more severe in the global south because we lack the resources to address them effectively. And so when the desert encroaches on our villages and towns and they become unlivable, we are forced to flee.
Desert, it's in Kuchiba villages and towns now. Let's consider these two things. Desert, encroach like air for desert in Niba Ukrum. Into Greenland, no green grasses nina air shade than the desert. And so therefore you have two solutions. The rightist and answer the conservative. Or say, I have to conserve my life, my land, my country, I have to conserve it. Me buy it, and you say number two. Because of reasons unknown and answered no, according to my say climate change. Because of anything. And your man Baba told me, I was put in charge of this. Nyankopon the day assassin a shady pants as a own shadow. This land, if you are Nyankopon the demand direct, but the my ancestors and the day occupy and a mama betuso. Assassin no air the air than the desert. And as a human being, a day now will be to me. Into Uber for a bush and phone in or man who bush and no phone now. Number 12 assassins were Germany, now no Japan, any PPA, a was assassins war. Now I'm different country. When I'm quanos, now more quite PPA bit me, yes. Nipa bit me, a nipa bit me, I PPA bit me, yes, and Colani bit me, I PPA. And only say, would the bet now go? Who said desert me? Air and crunchy by air froba. And I was starting to say, you'll fight the desert. And then, meaning say, there was some places be on my NASA residential areas be on over cement so cry, it me pia flower. Cement so crap, it me the apia flower. And to me, the reason why I will be to me at now I catch him say, into desert, I encourage about Wufi. A drummer okay near Timbari Cassie. A bit me a fan as a kind, and then again thing. Aqua ye. Debia or ye debia. Who won't mean into because of him to offer with this year, we hear no back. Same to better. Aqua different country. All in the name somewhere climate change refugees. No kind of media says, that's my interpretation. To the moment to us.
Wasan Shiri, a Somali-born prophet, a Somali-British poet born in Kenya to Somalian refugee parents, was London's first youth poet laureate. She writes in her poem titled Home. And it says, you have to understand that no one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land.
Unless the water is safer than the land. Okay.
No one bends their palms under trains beneath carriages. No one spends days and nights in the stomach of a truck feeding on newspaper unless the miles traveled mean something more than just a journey. Madam President, we cannot normalize cruelty. We cannot normalize hatred. We cannot normalize xenophobia and racism.
Your kind say, Obiano no ma, or then a barber boat and say, Untu bata. The only reason why I live on the best and is I just answer so yeah, dangerous as in until the person is choosing the water over the land. So the water is more safer than the land. So therefore, this person is putting their child's life in danger by putting them on the boat and shipping them to somewhere that they've never been before. Who person say? Given this comparison, the enemy that you know, the desert encroaching, and then the enemy that you don't know, the uncertainty that lies ahead of your journey. Sandema will say, you will choose the uncertainty, the uncertain enemy, the enemy that you don't know. You will choose over the enemy you know. Let's continue.
If we're going to tell a story, let's not tell its slant. Let's tell all the truth. When we speak of migrants, we speak of Mami Ewusi Mensah Frimpong, a judge on the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California. She's the first black female judge on any of California's 4 federal district courts.
If you have something to contribute to them, they will take you. Help you. You understand? It means the reason why my people are immigrating illegally to the country. Obi country. Konya kwa address of country. Enti waiting will be saying, you did not Trump by the agro no ana. That's what you na no ana. Let's continue.
She was born here in America to immigrant parents from Ghana. We speak of Peter Bosman, a medical doctor in Ghana who moved to the town of Piran in Slovenia in the 1980s and later became the first black mayor of Piran, the first black mayor in Slovenia and in the whole of Eastern Europe. We speak of T. Michael, the iconic Ghanaian Norwegian artist and designer. And of course, we speak of the late Kofi Annan, former United Nations Secretary General.
Make it point, only fact. A fact, like what's the point? Facts are what's the point of that?
Former United Nations Secretary General and Nobel Peace Prize recipient who was born in Ghana but spent his adulthood in various...
And say, meeting, one baby. He's not part of the inner circle, the security union. So he's demanding, say, they should make him part of them. And was starting, say, or name me, Anyamabonia Africa, and to make up for like the excuses to make up for Anyamabonia Africa. And it's out to say African country will say, hey, immigrate and because of say because of say saying but the corner is in South one. It is not enough reason for you to immigrate. Like it's a you as a country, as a citizen. I'm not trying to speak if we're not bad about any country. But sometimes you understand. Sometimes something can be done about them. The beginning and then the end. You want say and to Kwebu ever start here. Ayana yeni movie like yeni panana ekunto. So I say and to Kwa Miminis and to Kwa Bagana says here. I don't really know what to do. We didn't mean there. I'm just hoping say that reality never occurs. And to Kwa there nobody really knows what goes on. But Mimi sure say Sento Kwasi na se mpesa me kosiki asylum over bia na ever say dia se me chinya kwa they will turn me away. Definitely they will welcome me. But if an issue like a desert is culture and climate change and come some countries because Hawaii like South Africa for but they make do. Let's go.
Places in America and Europe. These are people who have brought great distinction to the countries that they decided to call home. Just as the migrants and the children of migrants before them did, I dare say these are not invaders. These are not criminals. Madam President, the slave trade must be recognized as the greatest crime against humanity. As the African champion on reparations, Ghana...
Because of Mount Keys. So they are not starting free. Say, what they are starting free complaints interfere the war make accusation to support complaints instead of whatever that he wants. The man
intends to introduce a motion in this August body to that effect. more than 12.5 million Africans were forcibly taken against their will and transported to create wealth for the powerful Western nations.
I want you to understand.
We must demand reparations for the enslavement of our people and the colonization of our land that resulted in the theft of our natural resources, as well as the looting of artifacts and other items of cultural heritage that have yet to be returned in total. We recognize the value of our land and the value of our lives, as did our colonizers, as well as the governments that happily paid reparations to former slave owners as compensation for the loss of their property, in quotes. And that property for which they received compensation was paid referred to enslaved people who had been freed. Madam President, an increasingly insecure world is witnessing upward spending on defense budgets of bilateral partners and steep cuts in official development assistance. Since July 2024, it is estimated that there's been a 40% drop in humanitarian aid globally. In this era of global uncertainty, Africa must exercise sovereignty over its natural resources.
It is still now we are still asking for humanitarian assistance. Still now, it is still now. There is what it is here. We be a must get into. To
raise the necessary funds to ensure the well-being of its citizens. The days of parceling out vast concession areas to foreign interests for exploitation must come to an end. We'll continue to welcome foreign investment, but we must negotiate better for a bigger share of the natural resources that belong to us.
Now they are more one-on-one. Many people, I do not agree with this whole foreign investors concept. Like, young Kasana, young Fosna, let's dial ourselves back to the industrialization era. Let's start everything from manual. Young fine son, young fan to zoom, young fan to your pong, young flowing son, young, let's risk our lives. It will pay off. People will die. I think a lot of people will die. I want to cite an incident like Santa Manomule Omule tracks where our America people died. A lot of people died in the mountain. Almost see almost died tempting skyscrapers, need liberty, Statue of Liberty, people died. But you see, it is important. And as I say, we are fortunate. We find ourselves in the age whereby, like, we have some certain technological advancement and now say complement that we can use to substitute for the dangers and then the risk which are associated with this kind of jobs. And just say, I will for a dime poor, and when you answer will be solar than answer would you can just use harness. I don't really see the reason why one who needs animal racing, but instead we are asking for outside help. But I urge us, like, me per se, young force, now try. If you are watching this video, please keep an open mind. Say, this is what should happen. Like, Sunday will say that's what's supposed to happen. Like, and yes, I young for open your mind. Yeah, there was it's Johnny. Let's continue.
And we must insist on value addition to these resources. We're tired of the continued image of poverty-stricken, disease-ridden rural communities living at the periphery of huge foreign-controlled natural resource concession areas. We're tired of having people extract the most they can from us and in return offer us the very least by way of respect, consider.
Oh, say, what could you know? And what trouble must say, slap me. Be a true, no one powers. Be a true, no one powers. No, which I know who say, I'm tired, so be a true, I know or powers. Ah, you slap me if a woman's way. So what bright jay? What do you mean can't say we welcome these foreigners into your country? So Omon Brown remember mine. One number your location, so Brown on you. Obi ne free in China, only more posse. One China, no posse quite spelling the same. Ono Mombra will come. Na Ombra, no Binson and San Fan and Corpus, and then Pacona Quaco too. Now we all Quaco General Bissau Castle, Quaco completely say, you are tight, sending panny, yes, sir. So it's in your mocha, medium but let's continue. No, so far I think that I got 2 minutes or so na speech na end. Maybe so far my tea papa speech ni but send you omani agina or more pon apaso. Once so what dream you say that is like the right way it was so omo handle and say na papa ne kan na then once so betimi wo ho kwan say we the obon apaso. So once so hu say oh any man ya makan it suggests otherwise then you can comment, you can put your comment down or something like that, then we can talk about them. So let's finish the
video. And dignity. We're tired of not being represented in ways that reveal the richness and complexity of our history or acknowledge all that we have overcome to arrive here
because someone
in this liminal space of untold possibilities.
Represent yourself.
Allow me to echo the Indian-American writer Arundhati Roy, who wrote, "Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her briefing." I want to add that for the sake of Africa, and quite selfishly for the sake of my 18-year-old daughter, I hope that this new world that is arriving is a place of safety and equality for women and girls.
You are not
to succeed, we must empower everyone, including women and girls, to reach their full potential.
If that is what you
In closing, Madam President, I'd like to congratulate you on your election to president.
It's not important so I will catch them say you hope for a better future. You are in a position where you can navigate that, you can make that happen. You are in charge of a country rich in resources, but poor management. So what can you do about that? Then you wants why am each and every man problems is here. The human resource part, that is the problem for you right now. And your education here, the school now, and for so bad also. Intimate person papa is able to go. No one say you hope for a better future for your 18-year-old. No, make that happen. Make your daughter proud of you. Be a good father. Like sit down. Medium names all gather. If you can gather people, brainstorm. You have people in a party. You have people around you. Don't mind me. I'm nobody. Sit down, brainstorm, and come up with ways that you can make the country go forward. Like start by building the basics and build on top of the basics. But we also have the mother called obey digitization. We can't so 50% now called digitization. Second, ya manual camera, ya camera, ya different economy, and kebab digital camera. There be any possible. You have to start from the analog one, and then you move on to the digital. You have to start from the basic, and then you move on to the complex. One of the best way also called bullet train. Ever steam engine by you need. Let's continue.
Decide over this historic 80th General Assembly and on being the fifth woman to hold this distinction.
I think that's the end of the speech. So maybe I wasn't pleased with the speech. I mean, maybe that's my honest opinion. Because complaints to go complain. He didn't go there with any fresh ideas. He went there to complain about how social media is always circulating the same ideas, preventing us, like keeping us in some kind of mental slavery, preventing us from going forward as a people, as civilization, as an independent country. And also, so quiet. It's the same thing now. It's the same complaint now. The racism and things now. You are in Ghana. How are you concerned about racism? Like racism. How is racism concerning you? Yeah, also will be country there. Anyway. My name is Johnson. Thank you for your time.